The earth is surrounded by a field of infinite intelligence. It is the atmosphere that swirls and twirls around the earth. It is the dance of the magnetic poles pulling back and forth. And this infinite intelligence is not only around the surface of the planet, it is deep within the molten core. It is the heat at the very center of the earth, swirling and twirling. And this infinite intelligence that I call right here, right now, the one creator, is the same infinite intelligence that has created this universe. There is no place where it is not. This spirit, this one creator, is everywhere. There's no place where it is not. It is here in this room. It is the air that is being breathed by each individuated expression of the one creator. Its nature is not only infinite intelligence, it is also the one power and the one joy. For everything that it has created is on purpose. It has intention. It is the one. And this one is who and what I am. This body here is standing in its atmosphere, and it is rooted and created out of its intention. Each and every person here is a individuated point of its power, its intelligence, its energy. The love of it that is within me is the same love that is within each and every heart. The uncaused joy that rises up through each and every one of us is the same joy of the one creator. Knowing this truth, I know this is true for this service. It is on purpose. The intention of the one creator is to show up here this morning, celebrating itself, knowing itself, individuated as this service, as each one of us, as the children in the youth church, as each one in service, in high watch. All that is going on here this morning, our very breath that we are breathing, is the activity of this infinite intelligence. And I celebrate it here with each and every one. I give thanks for its intention to celebrate us by gathering here through the music, through the word. And in my gratitude, my heart is so full, and I simply release and surrender this word into its intention, where it has already responded to it, where it is already the truth. So I simply let it be, and it is so. Amen. Good morning. My name is Sana Rose, and I'm a professional prayer practitioner here at the center. I want to invite you to read the affirmation with me this morning. There is a divine center within me which is never confused and never disturbed. It is from this center that I am motivated, and it uplifts me into joyful well-being. Hallelujah.
Isn't that wonderful to laugh at ourselves? Because honestly, you have to have a sense of humor to do this work. Because just dealing, we walk around saying we are one, most of the time feeling like we're two, So we have to have humor to help us reconcile it. Thank you very much for that, Chris. And good morning to you, beautiful people of the Center for Spiritual Living. As you heard from Julia Lockhart, our young adult MC this morning, our host, we are starting a new month, sowing seeds of happiness and talking about happiness. So I started to do some research looking around for inspirational information. And one of the things I came to, which I go to often, is Gretchen Rubin, her blog. She's one of the most thought-provoking and influential writers on the topic of happiness. Her book is The Happiness Project. Maybe you've heard of it, and it's a #1 New York Times bestseller. Anyway, she's got this blog in which she writes about happiness. She also interviews other authors who write about happiness, and recently she interviewed the author and photographer Kelly Hampton, who herself has a blog about happiness called Enjoying the Small Things, in which she writes about everyday experiences of life and how beautiful they are, accompanied with wonderful photographs. Now, Kelly also published her first book. It's entitled Bloom, Finding Beauty in the Unexpected. And the book is about the first year of her daughter, Nella, her life, because when Nella was born, it was discovered that she had Down syndrome. And the book tells about her mom, Kelly's changing perspective in that year and how she discovered happiness in the most unexpected of places. So there is an interview on Gretchen's website that I want to read to you portions of it because it's so relevant to our topic and it sets the right tone, in my opinion. So Gretchen asks Kelly, what is something you know now about happiness that you didn't know when you were 18 years old? And Kelly says, I know now that I am 100% responsible for my own happiness. It's a state of mind that is cultivated by my own choices and habits, not things and not people. Yes, my children make me happy. Yes, sitting at the beach makes me happy. Watching a sunset makes me happy. But I cannot rely on other people and my environment to make me happy. And I don't ever want to make the mistake of thinking that my happiness is dependent on something, a different job, more money, another child, wood floors, a remodeled bathroom, etc. So Gretchen then asks the next question, is there anything that you find yourself doing repeatedly that gets in the way of your happiness? And Kelly responds, whenever I compare myself to someone else, with others, then my happiness takes a stab in the back. Ain't that the truth? Next question. Gretchen asks, have you ever been surprised that something you expected would make you very happy didn't, or vice versa? Well, we probably all have our own answer to that. Here's Kelly's answer. When I was 18, I signed up to be a summer camp counselor at a pediatric cancer camp. I expected it would be nothing but heartbreaking, that I would be overwhelmed with pity and sadness. But I thought it would be good for me to do, and I wanted to help. At orientation, I was given my counselor pack, which included my camp t-shirt. And the print screen on the back of the t-shirt read, Camp Catch a Rainbow, the happiest place on earth. And it was. There was an indescribable freedom at that camp to just be. In the midst of everything these kids had gone through, sickness, hospital stays, hair loss, and more, they came to camp because they just wanted to be happy and have fun. They talked about their illness with such honesty and courage that it made me evaluate my own life and what I had to learn. So I returned every summer for 4 years, not just because those children needed volunteers to help run the camp, but because I craved the happiness there, the laughter, the dancing, the stories, and the way each summer I left the camp feeling empowered. Now, 10 years later, my own personal experience of welcoming my second daughter into the world mirrored those first camp feelings. Certainly, raising a child with Down syndrome was something that I thought would be nothing short of devastating. How wrong I was. Sometimes happiness can be found in the most unlikely experiences. And once again, I'm reminded that happiness is not determined by things or people, but by our choices and habits. And I choose to be happy. So I read the interview, and it gave me the question for me for this month is, where do I think my happiness is going to come from? You know, it's the answer to that question. Things will get better when what happens? What is it? You know, things come to mind. I was reading again on CNN Health an article about lotto winners, the lottery winners. And the author says, it's fun to think about what you would do if you suddenly won billions of dollars, but disillusioning as it may seem, big winnings can come with big costs also, especially because of the greed of others, experts say. And the article is filled up of examples, and there's an example of a mother of 3, and the quote from the mother after winning the lotto is, "Sometimes I wish I could change my name and go somewhere and hide." That's how awful it is. Another, a man from Washington State says, after winning the lotto, all we saw were predators, and we were afraid to do anything until we got police protection. Now, of course, not all lottery winning stories work out poorly. It's simply to illustrate the point, I think, and it is this, that happiness and sadness are available and possible with and without money. Back to the question. Where do we think our happiness will be found? Another website I like to visit is the Happier Planet Index. The Happier Planet Index shows that, it's got this formula. It measures countries' gross domestic product and their use of resources and education and a whole number of factors. You can go check up the formula. And it shows that countries that have the highest gross domestic product frequently rate the lowest on the happiness index. So it turns out that countries like Indonesia, Italy, Mexico that have very low gross domestic products, they rate very high comparatively on the index. They even have a study, a span of several years following 36 major nations and tracking over time their progress in their happiness index. And 3 of the largest countries in the world, China, the United States of America, and India, all of them aggressively pursuing a growth-based development model, all of them saw decreases in their happiness quotient over the time of that study. Well, it's coming on 4th of July. And you know, when I first became a citizen and I had to learn about the Declaration of Independence, it meant so much to me. Because right there at the beginning, it talks about the pursuit of happiness. And it puts it right up there in value with life and liberty. And when I read it and it said it was an inalienable right, that meant so much to me, as did the word pursuit. Because pursuit means follow, chase, hunt, trail, track down. But it also means something else that is quite relevant to the topic. It also means to practice, to engage in, to carry out, to act on. Here's what I take it to mean. Happiness is your and my nature. It's inalienable. It's not able to be taken away because nobody put it there. It came in with you. Just like your life, your aliveness. There's nothing you can do about it. And like happiness, no person grants it to you. And it's not anybody's responsibility to nurture. It's yours. To practice or not practice, that's the freedom part. And somebody should have told us that it doesn't depend on gross domestic product, or the lotto, or a fairy tale life story. You know, we used to say, as our welcome at the center, we used to say, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, where all that we ask of you is that you stay open to the possibility of changing your entire life by simply changing your mind. One of the changes we had in mind was, where do you think your happiness comes from? And what if you're wrong? There's a key idea, teaching at the center that accompanies this, and it goes like this. When you and I, when we do not give our attention to something that exists, let's say, for example, happiness or joy, then that something recedes into the background of our awareness. It doesn't disappear, it just appears to not be there. Like, for example, I'm not generally thinking about my breathing, but it's there. When I do mindfully bring my attention, say in meditation, to my breathing, now options emerge that I wasn't aware of before. I can breathe more deeply. I can count my breath. I can interact with my breathing. It's a whole different thing. That's the other side of this very simple idea. If I want to experience more fully something, like, say, for example, joy, then it's really as simple as giving my attention to it by thinking about it, by talking about it, by imagining it, looking for evidence of it, contemplating it. And when I do these things, it has the tendency to come forward as if more pronounced in my experience. I begin to notice it, and I begin to express it. Now, this simple practice, it comes with a warning label. There's a disclaimer, which goes like this. Happy people are not happy all of the time. If they were, it would be odd. Because reality is all of us experience times when we are sad, disillusioned, angry, upset, disappointed, confused. Feeling pessimistic and negative now and then is quite normal. But practicing your happy, what it does is it helps us snap back more quickly. That's the point. So the second part of the disclaimer and the warning is this. If you are someone who is persistently unhappy or depressed, then you probably want to consider additional professional help, because you don't want to use the strategy of happy thinking to cover over something that is a deeper cause. Because otherwise you will find yourself floating down the river called denial that we heard sung about. Okay? So with that in mind, I now have for you some cheerful ideas, seeds of happiness to sow in your own life. And my thought is, if you practice in this way, things must get better. And that is the title of the chapter that is assigned for our reading in the book that we are reading together this year. By the way, what is the book that we are reading this year? Two people. Say it again. A New Design for Living. And the chapter for today is entitled Things Must Get Better. And it's the same idea. If you practice whatever your practice is, then you ought to be able to see definite and measurable results. And I like that. You can be your own experiment. So here are some possible experiments, some seeds to sow. First one, for happiness. Practice being in the present moment. It brings tremendous joy. And that to me means savoring my life, noticing faces, children, people, events, being present for it. It's wonderful. A young person in my life just recently introduced me to a new app on the iPhone. It's called Instagram. And Instagram is people all around the world going around within certain restrictions, taking photographs of things that they see that are beautiful to them and then just sharing them. It's that simple. So I got stuck into it. And oh my goodness, now wherever I go, I see a little square frame and think, I'm going to snap that. And you know, all of a sudden, faces are beautiful. I think I'm going to get arrested from snapping people. You know, it's just so beautiful. I can't walk down the sidewalk. A rock looks beautiful all of a sudden. Now, I don't know that everybody needs the app to become present. But oh my goodness, being present for life, mindfully noticing what is in your view, brings great joy. Here's the second seed to plant. Pay attention to your intuition. It grows joy. In my experience, when I don't pay attention to my intuition, it leads in the opposite direction. Our founder said intuition is God in humankind. It is our connection to the divine. And so I've been learning over time to listen to when my heart prompts me and to be with that. And one of the ways to open that listening is to ask myself when I'm not feeling quite right, why am I doing what I'm doing? I don't ask myself, what am I doing? Because I generally know the answer to that. But why am I doing what I'm doing? And that it helps me take time to evaluate what the prompting of my heart is saying. I believe that there is in us a tremendous bright wisdom that can help us. I'm not advocating making rash decisions or reckless ones or impulsive moves based on a feeling. I'm talking about developing a relationship with the bright wisdom that's inside of us. And as I've done that for myself, I've come to know that there are many times, too often, where I've stayed in something long past the time when I should have left. 3, seed to plant. Be interested in people. In contrast to be interested in only me. Be interested in people, and it opens up oceans of joy. In the New York Times, in the health section, there was a year ago an article entitled, "Talk Deeply and Be Happy." The article is about the research of a psychologist, Dr. Mel, who did a small study because he was trying to discover something. And his study started to show that surfing on the shallow side of life in conversation is not bad, keeps things pleasant, but it doesn't necessarily lead to deep feelings of happiness and connectedness. But what does is having good, meaningful conversations, because those kind of conversations connect us. And when we have those kind of conversations, it helps us make sense of an otherwise chaotic world. It helps us learn new perspectives, broaden our own, and it can help us to also not feel alone. And what do we mean when we say deep conversations? That's when you talk about what you believe in, when you talk about what you truly trust in life, when you talk about what makes you tick, what fascinates you, or when you talk about what you've learned from the hard times and the good times. And the doctor was trying to see if people could have more feelings of happiness by having these kind of substantive conversations, and I'm pretty sure it does. But I want to add to that. Don't force your meaningful conversations on people who don't want to have them. Because that just makes both of you unhappy, right? Number 4, here's a seed to plant. Thrive where you are planted. You know, often people say, and I'm one of those people that, well, we're thinking that the right job, the right relationship, the right situation, the right something will bring that special change in our life that will result in happiness. And sometimes that is the case, truly. However, there's another part of it that I'm thinking about. If you've ever been somebody who interviewed a candidate for their job, and all that candidate could tell you about was how much they hated their current or previous job, or complained about their previous supervisor, it's like being on a date with somebody who only talks about the downside of their previous partner. You know it doesn't go well from there on. Because in the back of your mind, you're going, this is not a happy camper. Whereas thriving where you're planted, it doesn't mean that you're settling or giving up or you don't have aspirations for a better job or a deep connection or better health or this or that. It does, however, change the tone and the atmosphere that comes from you. And in my opinion, that makes you very, very beautiful and attractive and available for options, avenues, experiences. Number 5, a seed to sow. Lighthearted, like the song. Smile. Smile is such an easy thing to practice because you can do it even when you don't feel like it. And it will have an effect. It's kind of like forgiveness work. Sometimes you have to start forgiveness work when you don't feel like it and you don't even mean it, but you begin, and then slowly your whole being catches up with the program. That's how it is. And practicing an affirmative point of view, like practicing a smile, it's contagious. And then you learn to turn to it as a first recourse. I drive friends crazy, not all the time, but I've learned to look for the benefit in situations that are challenging, and it's become a habit, and sometimes they just don't want to hear from me. Anyway, I read up an article about smiling and its benefits by a Dr. Mark Stibich, and here's what the good doctor says. First of all, practice smiling because it makes you attractive. We are naturally drawn to it. That's why we buy products where the model on the product ad is smiling. You're more likely to have people warm up to you if there's a genuine smile on your face. The doctor says also that smiling is a mood changer. Who knew? When you just smile, the action of the muscles start to send messages through your body to produce whatever it needs to move up in mood. Who knew? Just put the smile on. And here's the third thing the doctor says. It's contagious. It's catchy. Haven't you ever found yourself smiling back when you didn't mean to? Huh? Seriously. I remember the situation once. It was a government official that I was dealing with getting some paperwork, and she was just really busy, and she was just really not a happy camper. And so I just kept on smiling at her, and every time she asked me something, I smiled back the answer, and she did, and she smiled, and I smiled at her, and finally she looked up at me and said, "What?" And I said, "Nothing, I'm just happy." And she said to me, "Well, it's annoying me." But she said it through a smile. She couldn't help it, you know? Mission accomplished. The doctor also says that smiling is an immune system boost. I don't know how they measure that, but here's something he says you can measure for yourself. If you've got one of those blood pressure measuring kits, he says you can test your blood pressure and then practice smiling for 10 minutes, just smile no matter what, and then test your blood pressure again. And he says it's going to go down. I love that. He also says that smiling releases endorphins and serotonin, so it's like a natural drug. You want a high? Lock yourself in your office and just smile. You come out all silly and weird, you know, like, and don't tell anybody how you got there. And of course, one of the things he said that I said, and practice smiling because it makes you look younger. Everything up. Here's the 6th seed to sow. Make new friends. Especially friends that share your interest, your heart interest. Because that's going to go deep. You know, people who come here to the center and connect, either through classes or something, they make friendships for lifetime. Very meaningful ones. They're there for each other. They help each other. They're through the important changes in life. Coming to the center and showing up here is the first wonderful step. The next step, though, is to connect, because without the meaningful connection, then this place will eventually cease being able to meet you at your need. Because really the message and everything we have here is not something you can't find somewhere else. But the connection is important. How? Well, I hear from men who go to the Man Spirit Retreat, which is registering right now, that they make at that place the deepest connections of mutual nourishment that last their whole life. Women's Spirit Retreat, or the free empowerment group meetings, or people who volunteer, like the ushers who stand and greet you, or the people who are interested in the sound, or those who serve in the youth. And there are places where we can connect and start to share our heart and have our deep conversations. And this is the difference. Happy people, I read, are inclined to have good friends. Not necessarily many, many friends, but good friends. And they nurture and support these relationships. And when we have that sort of thing, we thrive. But we must go out for them. And finally, the final seed to sow, and this one, a young person in my life said, it's a no-brainer. For happiness, sow seeds of forgiveness. You know, forgiveness when you can, as you can, even if it's just a little bit, even if you have to do it in small parts, it adds up. And over time, not only does it create for you the space to reveal your natural happiness, but in my opinion, it contributes to the happiness possibility of the entire planet. Let us take a moment to pray together. I invite you to breathe in. And as you exhale, let your eyes close if that feels comfortable. As we recognize together, there is one life that we share. And we call this life that we are sharing divine. It is without restrictions and without borders. It has no limit. And it itself is the source of all things. We call it the Creator. We call it God. And we consider it with reverence and awe and gratitude. That we are living as part of it. That we are expressing it even through this prayer. That we are revealing its true nature by our choices and decisions. And so from the sense of unity with each other and the Creator, we declare in our prayer today that we are open and available for the natural expression of our heart's joy, a deep soul-filled joy, a deep abiding natural joy. And we do this so that all people who come into our thought atmosphere, who interact with us, may be similarly lifted up into the recognition of their kinship with all life. In deepest gratitude, we release this word of prayer into the law of mind, feeling its deep roots being established in us, feeling the change of being reminded. And we let it be. And together we say, and so it is. And I invite you to breathe in deeply again. And sigh. And with that sigh, we make a transition to the part of our service where we share together. I invite the ushers to stand. And won't you please take your gift in your hand and say after me, joyously I give, with an attitude of abundance. Amen. Ushers, please receive the gift.